Leela Hart was an ordinary girl, living on an ordinary planet, in an ordinary home. She didn't know it, but her life was about to change forever. It all started on a rainy day when Leela was going through her late grandmother's things in the attic. Her grandmother had passed away recently, and the house was filled with memories. As Leela dusted off old boxes, she found a small, strange object wrapped in a cloth. It wasn't anything that seemed important, but something about it caught her attention. It wasn't like anything she had ever seen before. The object was smooth, metallic, and shaped like a small crystal, glowing faintly with a light that seemed to pulse with a rhythm of its own. Leela picked it up carefully, studying it in the soft light of the attic. There was no label or sign of its origin, just a strange energy that hummed in her hand. She was about to put it back when something odd happened. The crystal began to glow brighter, and a deep, soothing voice filled her mind. "You are the one," the voice said. Leela froze, her heart racing. Was she imagining it? Had she gone mad? She looked around, half expecting someone to be in the attic with her, but there was no one. She closed her eyes, trying to shake off the feeling that something extraordinary had just happened. But the voice didn't go away. "You are the one who can awaken us." Leela didn't understand. She had no idea what the voice meant, but she felt something stir inside her. It was as if the very universe had just whispered her name, and she couldn't ignore it. Something about the voice, the crystal, the feeling, it was all too real. She had to know what it meant. The voice spoke again, clearer this time. "You are of the bloodline, the key is in your hands." Leela's hands shook as she held the crystal tightly. Her grandmother had never mentioned anything about ancient keys, mysterious voices, or bloodlines. She had been a simple woman living a quiet life. But now, Leela felt the weight of something much bigger than herself. What was going on, and why her? The voice continued, this time softer, almost like a whisper. "The fleet is waiting, only you can awaken it." Leela stood in the attic, clutching the crystal to her chest. The voice had stopped, but the strange sense of urgency hadn't gone away. She knew she had to learn more. She needed to understand what this artifact was, where it came from, and why it was calling to her. Leela's mind raced with questions. Was she part of some grand legacy? Who were these voices, and what did they mean by the fleet? She had heard tales of ancient civilizations and long-forgotten technologies, but never anything that seemed so real, so close. She couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change in ways she could never have imagined. The next few days passed in a blur. Leela couldn't stop thinking about the crystal and the voice. She spent hours researching anything she could find about ancient artifacts, lost civilizations, and fleets of warships. She had never been particularly interested in history before, but now it felt like the key to unlocking her own future. The more she searched, the more she discovered strange references to something called the Astrani. The Astrani were said to be an ancient race, more advanced than anything humanity had ever known, and they had vanished thousands of years ago. Their greatest achievement, however, had been the creation of a fleet of powerful ships, capable of unimaginable destruction. The fleet had been lost to time, hidden away in some forgotten corner of the galaxy, waiting for the right person to awaken it. Leela's heart raced as she read. The descriptions matched the feeling she had experienced when she touched the crystal. The fleet, the key. The bloodline, it was all connected to her, but who would believe her? How could she convince anyone that what she had found was real? No one in her life would take her seriously. They'd think she was crazy, just like she had almost thought herself. But the crystal was real. The voice had been real, and somehow she knew that the fleet was waiting for her. Leela's thoughts were interrupted by a knock on her door. She jumped, startled. It was her mother, standing in the doorway with a worried look on her face. "Leela, are you okay?" "You've been up here for hours," her mother said, stepping into the attic. Leela quickly hid the crystal in her hand, not sure what to say. She didn't want to explain anything just yet. It was too big, too strange. She couldn't risk her mother thinking she was losing her mind. "I'm fine," Leela said, forcing a smile. "Just thinking." Her mother didn't look convinced, but didn't press the matter further. "Well, dinner is ready downstairs. You should eat something." Leela nodded and followed her mother downstairs, trying to push the strange events out of her mind. But as she sat down to eat, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something dangerous, something important. The next few days were even stranger. As Leela tried to go about her normal life, the voice returned, speaking in her mind whenever she was alone. It told her of a great war that had taken place eons ago, a war between the Astrani and a race of conquerors who had nearly destroyed everything. It spoke of a time when the fleet would be needed again, and the one who could awaken it would have the power to save or destroy the galaxy. The voice told her that the fleet had been hidden away, its systems deactivated, its weapons dormant. But now something had triggered the fleet's awakening. The crystal had chosen her, and she was the one who would bring the fleet back to life. The more Leela heard, the more she believed. She had to find the fleet. She had to understand what it meant, and why she was the one who had been chosen. But she wasn't the only one searching for it. One evening, as Leela was leaving the library, a man in a dark suit approached her. He was tall, with sharp features, and he carried himself with an air of authority. His presence was imposing, and Leela instinctively took a step back. "Miss Hart," the man said smoothly, "I believe we have some matters to discuss." Leela felt a cold chill run down her spine. There was something about this man that didn't sit right with her. He wasn't just an ordinary stranger. He knew her name. He knew something about her. "I'm afraid I don't know who you are," Leela said, trying to sound confident. "I'm Commander Vale," the man replied, his eyes narrowing. "And I've been looking for you." Leela's heart skipped a beat. How did he know about her? What did he want? "I'm afraid you're holding something very valuable," Vale continued, his voice low and threatening. "Something that doesn't belong to you." Before Leela could react, Vale reached for her arm, but she pulled away quickly. She had no idea what he was talking about, but she knew that this wasn't good. Vale's presence wasn't a coincidence. He was after something, and it had to be the crystal. Leela turned and ran, her heart pounding. She didn't know who this man was, but she knew he wasn't here to help her. She couldn't let him find the crystal, not now, not when everything was just starting to make sense. As she ran through the dark streets, Leela realized that her life would never be the same again. She had uncovered something bigger than herself, something that could change everything. And now someone was hunting her to take it all away. The hunt had begun. And Leela Hart, an ordinary girl on an ordinary planet, had just stepped into a universe that would never be the same. Leela ran as fast as her legs could carry her, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. The city streets blurred around her as she weaved in and out of alleyways, her mind racing. She could feel the weight of the crystal in her pocket, still pulsing with that strange, otherworldly energy. She didn't know who this Commander Vale was or why he was after her, but one thing was certain. He wouldn't stop until he got what he wanted. Her heart pounded in her chest, and her footsteps echoed in the narrow alleyways. She didn't know where she was going, but she had to keep moving. She had to stay ahead of him. Behind her, she could hear the sound of footsteps. Someone was following her, and they were getting closer. Vale's men. She could feel it in her gut. They were closing in. Leela took a sharp turn and ducked into a small doorway, hoping to lose them in the labyrinth of the city. The doorway led into a narrow hallway, and she pressed her back against the cool, concrete wall, trying to catch her breath. Her mind raced as she thought of what to do next. She couldn't go back home. If Vale had found her once, he would find her again. She needed to disappear, to figure out what was going on before it was too late. She looked down at the crystal in her hand. It had been with her for only a few days, but it felt like it had been a part of her forever. The voice that spoke to her, the voice that told her she was the key, still echoed in her mind. The fleet, the Astrani, the ancient power hidden in the stars. She had to find the fleet, but how could she do that if people were after her? She felt a wave of panic rising in her chest. She was just a normal girl. She didn't have the skills or resources to fight back. What could she do against a man like Vale? He was dangerous, and he wasn't alone. His men were everywhere. Leela had no choice. She had to leave Earth. She had to find answers, and to do that, she had to find the fleet. But where would she go? The voice had said the fleet was hidden, but hidden where? And why had it chosen her? Suddenly, a figure appeared at the end of the hallway. Leela froze, her heart pounding in her ears. The man was tall, with dark hair and sharp eyes. He looked out of place in the dimly lit alleyway, his clothes clean and formal. He had an air of authority about him, like someone who had seen and done things most people never would. Leela's first instinct was to run again, but something stopped her. There was something familiar about him, something that made her hesitate. He stepped closer, his movements slow and deliberate. "You don't have to be afraid," he said in a calm voice, his accent unfamiliar but soothing. "I'm not with Vale." Leela didn't trust him. She couldn't. But there was something in his voice, something that made her want to believe him. She didn't have time for this. She needed answers, and maybe this man could give them to her. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "My name is Dr. Karen Zane," he replied, holding up his hands in a gesture of peace. I've been watching you, Leela. I know what you found, the artifact, the crystal. You're in danger. Leela took a step back, unsure of what to make of him. How do you know about the crystal? I've been researching the Astrani for years, he explained. I knew the fleet existed, but I couldn't find it, not until I saw the reports about a human girl with a crystal that responded to her touch. Leela stared at him, disbelief in her eyes. You've been looking for the fleet too? Yes, Dr. Zane said, but not just for the fleet. I've been looking for you. You're the key to awakening it. Leela's mind spun. She had so many questions. Why her? Why now? What did he mean by the key? But the more she listened to him, the more it seemed like he might be telling the truth. You know about the fleet? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Yes, Dr. Zane said. The Astrani fleet is the last remaining piece of an ancient civilization. The Astrani were more advanced than anything we could imagine. Their technology, their weapons, if they were to fall into the wrong hands, it could mean the end of everything. Leela's heart skipped a beat. She had heard fragments of these stories in her research, but she hadn't known they were true. The Astrani weren't just a myth, they were real, and the fleet they had left behind was the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. What do you want from me? Leela asked, her voice sharp. I want to help you, Dr. Zane said. I know you're scared, but you can't do this alone. You need guidance. You need someone who understands the Astrani and their technology. I can help you find the fleet, but we have to move quickly. Leela didn't know what to think. She wasn't sure if she trusted him, but she didn't have many options. Commander Vale and his men were still looking for her. If she stayed here much longer, she would be caught. She had to make a decision, and she had to make it fast. Okay, Leela said finally, her voice steady despite the storm of thoughts in her head. But I don't trust you yet. I understand, Dr. Zane replied with a nod. You don't have to trust me right now, but you will, and I promise I won't let anything happen to you. Leela nodded slowly, still unsure, but she didn't have time to argue. Where do we go? Dr. Zane's eyes lit up with determination. I have a ship waiting. We'll leave Earth, go to the last known location of the fleet, but we have to hurry. Vale isn't far behind. Leela looked around, her heart still racing, but she knew this was her only chance. She couldn't stay on Earth, not with Vale closing in. The crystal in her pocket seemed to hum again, as if urging her to move forward. Without another word, Leela followed Dr. Zane out of the alleyway and into the night. The city seemed even darker now, the shadows deeper and more ominous. As they walked, Leela couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her, waiting for the right moment to strike. But she had no choice. She had to trust Dr. Zane, at least for now. She had to find the fleet no matter what. They arrived at a small, hidden hangar at the edge of the city. Inside, a sleek ship stood waiting, its engines humming softly. It wasn't the kind of ship Leela had ever seen before, advanced, sleek, and built for speed. It looked like something out of a science fiction movie. Dr. Zane led her up the ramp and into the ship, and the doors closed behind them with a soft hiss. Strap in, Doctor. Zane said, taking the pilot's seat. We're leaving Earth. Leela did as she was told, settling into the seat next to him. She could feel the hum of the ship's engines as they powered up, ready to take off into the unknown. She glanced out the window, watching as the city grew smaller and smaller. She was leaving everything behind, her family, her home, the life she had known. She didn't know what lay ahead, but she knew one thing for sure. There was no going back now. As the ship ascended into the sky, Leela's heart pounded with a mixture of fear and excitement. She was on her way to find the fleet, to uncover the secrets of the Astrani. But she had no idea what dangers awaited her. Commander Vale was still out there, and he wasn't the only one who wanted the fleet. And then there was the voice that had guided her so far. She didn't know if it was the artifact speaking or something else, but she could feel it deep inside her. The voice wasn't done yet. It was only just beginning. The journey ahead would be long and dangerous, but Leela was ready. She had no choice but to move forward to face whatever lay ahead, because the fleet was waiting. And only she could awaken it. Leela sat quietly in the ship, her eyes fixed on the stars outside. The vastness of space stretched out before her, endless and full of mystery. She had never left Earth before. She had never imagined a life like this, flying through space, searching for something that might not even exist. She was alone, and yet she was. Dr. Zane was with her, and the crystal she had found was pulsing softly in her pocket, almost as if it were alive. The hum of the ship's engines was constant, but it was a comforting sound, like the heartbeat of the vessel. Dr. Zane was busy at the controls, his fingers moving over the touchscreens with practiced ease. He hadn't said much since they left Earth, and neither had she. What could they say? Everything was new, everything was uncertain. "Where are we headed?" Leela finally asked, breaking the silence. Dr. Zane looked up from the controls, his eyes meeting hers. "To the last known location of the fleet. It's a place called Xiphos. It's not on any official star maps, but I've been tracking signals for years. It's the only lead we have." Leela nodded, absorbing the information. Xiphos. It sounded like a place lost in time, hidden away from the rest of the galaxy. "And what will we find there, Doctor?" Zane paused, as if considering the question carefully. "I don't know, but I believe it's where the fleet is. The fleet systems were deactivated long ago, but someone activated them recently. It's been dormant for centuries, but now it's waking up." Leela stared at him, her mind spinning. "And you think that someone is me?" "Yes," he replied simply. "You're the key, the artifact you found, the crystal, it's a piece of the puzzle. You are the only one who can unlock the fleet's full potential." Leela felt a chill run down her spine. The weight of what he was saying hit her all at once. She wasn't just involved in this, she was the center of it. The fleet, the ancient civilization, the crystal, it was all tied to her. But why? What had made her the one to hold the key? Doctor. Zane seemed to sense her unease. "You're not alone in this, Leela. The fleet might be powerful, but it's not just about weapons. It's about knowledge. The Astrani left you clues to a better future." Leela wasn't sure if that made her feel better or worse. She didn't want to think about a better future right now. She just wanted to survive. She just wanted to make it to Xiphos, figure out what was going on, and find a way to stop Commander Vale from catching up with them. The journey was long, and the silence between them was thick. Dr. Zane focused on the controls, and Leela stared out the window at the endless stars. She had never felt so small, yet so important at the same time. She was one person, one girl, and yet she was carrying the future of the galaxy on her shoulders. Hours turned into days. The ship moved through the void, and Leela kept herself busy by reading through the data Dr. Zane had given her. The Astrani were a race like no other, their technology far beyond anything humanity had ever dreamed of. But their civilization had fallen, destroyed by their own creations. The fleet they had left behind was supposed to be a safeguard, a last resort. But it had been abandoned for centuries, locked away until someone like Leela could find it. The more Leela learned about the Astrani, the more she realized how little she knew about the universe. She had always thought Earth was the center of everything. But now she understood that the galaxy was full of secrets, waiting to be discovered. One evening, as Leela was sitting in the ship's small galley, Dr. Zane joined her, holding a steaming cup of something that smelled vaguely like coffee. "We're getting close," he said, taking a seat across from her. "Xiphos is just ahead." Leela nodded, feeling a wave of nervous energy wash over her. "And then what?" Dr. Zane took a sip from his cup, his expression unreadable. "We'll find the fleet." "But it's not just about finding it, it's about controlling it. The fleet's power is unlike anything we've ever seen, and it's tied to you. You'll have to make decisions, hard decisions." Leela frowned, not liking the sound of that. "What kind of decisions?" "The kind that will affect the future of the galaxy. The fleet is meant to protect, but it can also destroy. It can bring peace, or it can bring war. You're the one who will have to decide how to use it." The weight of his words settled heavily on Leela's shoulders. She wasn't just searching for a lost fleet. She was being given the power to change everything. She didn't know if she was ready for that. As the ship approached Xiphos, the stars ahead of them began to shift. Leela could see the faint outline of a planet emerging from the darkness, its surface glowing with a strange, unnatural light. It wasn't a planet that should exist. It was too perfect, too artificial. Dr. Zane's voice broke through her thoughts. "That's Xiphos. The fleet is here, somewhere on that planet. We're going to land and start searching." Leela stood, feeling a mixture of excitement and fear. This was it. This was what they had come for. The fleet was within reach. The ship descended through the atmosphere of Xiphos, and Leela's stomach lurched as they passed through the clouds. The planet's surface was covered in ruins, massive structures that stretched high into the sky. It looked like an ancient city, abandoned long ago, but with a strange sense of order to it. The buildings were too symmetrical, too precise, as if they had been designed by someone with a deep understanding of geometry. "Doctor." Zane guided the ship down toward a flat area near the ruins, and Leela's heart pounded as they landed. She couldn't help but feel a sense of awe as she stepped out of the ship and onto the surface of Xiphos. The air was thin but breathable, and the ground was covered in dust and debris. "This way," Dr. Zane said, leading her toward a large structure in the distance. It was a building unlike anything Leela had ever seen, massive and angular with strange symbols etched into its surface. The building seemed to hum with energy as if it were alive. They approached the entrance and Dr. Zane paused, turning to Leela. "This is it." The heart of the fleet. Leela felt her pulse quicken. She was standing at the entrance of something ancient, something powerful. She didn't know what was inside, but she knew it would change everything. As they entered the building, Leela could feel the air change. It was colder here, and the walls seemed to pulse with a strange energy. The deeper they went, the more the feeling of unease grew. It was as if the building was alive, watching them, waiting for them. They reached a large chamber at the center of the building, and Leela's breath caught in her throat. In the center of the room, there was a large, circular platform surrounded by massive pillars. At the center of the platform was a crystal, just like the one Leela had found, but much larger, glowing with a brilliant light. "This is it," Dr. Zane whispered. "The heart of the fleet." Leela stepped forward, her heart racing. She could feel the power emanating from the crystal. She knew what she had to do. She reached out, her fingers brushing the surface of the crystal, and then everything changed. The room shook, and the air filled with a deafening roar. The walls of the building seemed to shift, and the ground beneath Leela's feet began to tremble. The crystal pulsed with a brilliant light, and Leela felt her entire body vibrate with energy. It was as if the very fabric of the universe was bending around her. And then a voice spoke, not in her mind, but out loud, echoing through the chamber. "Welcome, awakened one." Leela froze, her heart pounding. The voice was familiar, the same voice that had spoken to her when she first found the crystal. But this time it was different. This time the voice was more powerful, more real. "You have come," the voice continued. "You have unlocked the fleet." Leela's mind raced as the ground beneath her shifted again. The building was coming to life, the systems inside it awakening after centuries of dormancy. And then something else happened. A hologram appeared in front of her, a projection of an ancient Astrani warrior standing tall and proud. The warrior looked down at her, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "You are the key," the warrior said. "The fleet is yours to command." Leela's hands shook as she stared at the hologram. She had done it. She had awakened the fleet. But now the real challenge began. The fleet was hers, but what would she do with it? The chamber where Leela stood was silent for a moment, save for the hum of the ancient technology coming to life. The hologram of the Astrani warrior flickered in front of her, its light casting eerie shadows on the walls. It was as if time itself had stopped, and the weight of what she had just done was pressing down on her. She had awakened the fleet, the most powerful weapon in the galaxy, and now it was hers to command. Leela's heart raced as she stared at the hologram, her thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and fear. She had never asked for any of this. She was just a girl from Earth, a girl who had stumbled upon a relic she didn't understand. And now she was being told that she held the fate of the galaxy in her hands. The hologram of the Astrani warrior spoke again, its voice echoing through the chamber. "You are the awakened one. You have unlocked the power of the fleet. But be warned, there are others who seek this power, those who would use it for destruction. You must choose how to wield it." Leela swallowed hard. "I don't know how to use it. I'm not a leader. I'm not ready for this." The warrior's eyes glowed brighter, as if understanding her fear. "The power of the fleet does not choose based on readiness, but on will. You have the will to unlock it. Now you must have the will to lead it." Leela felt a weight settle on her shoulders. She had never imagined herself as a leader. She was just a normal teenager with normal dreams. But now she was faced with a decision that could change everything. She could use the fleet to protect, or she could use it to dominate. She could bring peace, or bring war. "How do I even begin?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The hologram of the warrior did not answer directly. Instead, it faded away, leaving behind a glowing panel on the ground. Leela stepped forward, unsure of what to do. She reached down, her fingers brushing the panel. A series of symbols lit up on the surface, and a map appeared in the air in front of her. It was a map of the galaxy, but there was something different about it. It was ancient, and yet it seemed alive. The map shifted, showing areas of interest, planets, star systems, and forgotten colonies. Some of the locations were marked with symbols she didn't recognize, but there was one place that stood out, a location at the edge of the galaxy. It was marked with a bright, pulsing light. Leela's heart skipped a beat. That was it. That was where the fleet had been hidden. It was a place called Valeker. The map suggested that it held the key to unlocking the full potential of the fleet. But why was it hidden? What could be so dangerous about Valeker that the fleet needed to be kept away from it for so long? She didn't know, but she had to go there. The voice that had spoken to her, the one that had guided her since she first touched the crystal, was calling her. And now the fleet was calling her too. "We need to go to Valeker," Leela said, her voice steady now. She turned to Dr. Zane, who had been standing silently by her side, watching her every move. He was the one who had guided her this far, and now, it seemed, he was waiting for her to make the next decision. Dr. Zane nodded, his expression serious. "I've heard of Valeker. It's a place of great significance. It's where the Astrani kept their most powerful secrets. But it's also a place of danger. There's a reason it's been hidden for so long." Leela didn't care about the dangers. She didn't care about the risks. She had to know. She had to understand what the fleet was, what the Astrani had left behind. "We don't have time to waste," Leela said. "If we don't go now, someone else will, and we can't let that happen." Dr. Zane studied her for a long moment before finally speaking. "You're right, we'll go, but we need to be careful. Vale is still out there, and he's not going to stop until he has the fleet. We have to move quickly." Leela nodded. She wasn't afraid of Vale anymore. She had the fleet now. She had the power, and she wasn't going to let anyone take it from her. They made their way back to the ship, and Leela took her seat at the controls, her hands shaking slightly. The ship was ready to move, and the coordinates for Valeker were set. Dr. Zane sat beside her, his eyes fixed on the holographic display as the ship's engines powered up. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Dr. Zane asked quietly. Leela didn't answer right away. She wasn't sure. But she knew one thing for certain: she had come this far, and there was no turning back now. "I have to be," she said at last. "We have no choice." The ship launched into the stars, its engines roaring as it shot through the galaxy. Leela felt the pull of the unknown, the weight of the journey ahead. Valeker was far, but the map showed the way, and the fleet was waiting. As the ship hurtled through space, Leela's mind raced. She thought of her family, of Earth, and of everything she had left behind. She thought of the crystal in her pocket, still pulsing with power. It had chosen her, and now she had to make sure she was worthy of that choice. Hours passed, and the stars outside the window grew dimmer as they moved deeper into the unknown. Dr. Zane didn't speak much, and Leela was content with the silence. It gave her time to think, to process everything that had happened. She had been thrust into this world, into this mission, without warning. And now she was the one who held the fate of the galaxy in her hands. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sudden shift of the ship. The controls flickered, and the hum of the engines grew louder. Leela looked at the display, her eyes widening in shock. "We're being pulled in," she said. "What's happening?" Dr. Zane quickly checked the controls. "It's a gravity well. Something has detected us." Leela's stomach dropped. She knew exactly who it was: Vale. He had found them. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Dr. Zane ordered, his voice sharp with urgency. But before they could react, a massive ship appeared on the radar. It was large, dark, and intimidating. The ship was designed for war, and it was moving toward them with terrifying speed. The fleet was here, but it wasn't on their side. "Vale," Leela whispered, her heart racing. "He's here." The ship grew larger and larger, filling the display. It was a massive warship, its weapons already powered up. Vale had come for the fleet, and he wasn't going to let anything stand in his way. Leela's hands gripped the controls, her mind racing. She couldn't let Vale take the fleet. She had to protect it. She had to protect humanity. "Get ready," Dr. Zane shouted as the enemy ship closed in. Leela's mind was a blur of thoughts, but there was one thing she knew. She wasn't going to let this happen, not now, not when they were so close. The fleet was hers, and she would protect it with everything she had. "Activate the fleet," Leela said, her voice steady. Dr. Zane turned to her in shock. "Are you sure it's not fully awakened?" "I don't care," Leela said, her voice fierce. "We have to fight." The ship's systems came to life with a deep, resonating hum. The fleet was waiting, and it would fight with her. The battle for the fleet had begun.